Oh, yeah, I see 3, 2. Okay.
1. Hello, it's Nancy Juetten, and today is day 4 of the 20th anniversary celebration, where I am sharing powerful lessons that I've learned over the course of 20 years in business so that you can accelerate your path to success faster. And today is going to be a party of sorts because I have brought on none other than the amazing, incomparable Bill Stainton. Welcome, welcome.
Amazing and incomparable. Man, do you ever have to raise the bar? You really need to get out more, Nancy. Meet some more exciting people. I'm good. I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm great. And if those of you who are watching are meeting Bill Stainton for the first time, oh my gosh, you are so in for a treat. I'm going to give you the official bio, and then I'm going to tell you how I met him, because the story behind how we met and what happened since is going to give you so much inspiration about
so much better than the bio.
What's that?
And it's so much better than the bio. That's because I didn't follow Nancy's advice. I wrote I should have just done. I should do what Nancy says, and then the bio will be better. There are a few things more intimidating than having Nancy Juetten read a bio you've written, because inside she's deep down inside she's going like, "This, who wrote this? Is terrible. This is terrible." So.
Okay, alrighty, right. It says, "How good a speaker is Bill Stainton, CSP?" When the National Speakers Association was looking for the perfect opening keynote for their New York City convention, the largest in the association's history, they chose Bill Stainton. His standing ovation performance led one former NSA president to say, "I have never seen anyone combine so many elements of a great keynote as brilliantly as you did." Bill's programs are always customized, always entertaining. That's why he's a certified speaking professional, the speaking profession's highest earned international measure of excellence. Fewer than 15% of NSA members worldwide have achieved the CSP designation, and Bill is proud to be among them. And guess what? In 2019, he was inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame. Woo-hoo! And there are only 185 of them in this exclusive club. I am so honored to be in your company.
Well, it's like any accolade, it's great in the moment, and the next day nobody cares.
Well, so I want to share with the folks how we met in the first place, because we met at such a crucial time in the start of my business.
1967, the summer of love. Mm-hmm. We were both so young.
Yes, we were. So here's how it went down. I'm an introvert. I hate going to meetings, but I need some inspiration. And I was living in Bellevue at the time, and the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce was hosting this keynote brought on by none other than the amazing Bill Stainton.
That's right.
And
that's a big gig. That's a great, the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. Woo.
Well, we bloom where we're planted, don't we? We bloom where we're planted. And here's the thing. I've always been a sucker for a sassy talk title. I have seen so many blah, blah, blah talk titles in my day that wouldn't get me out of bed, let alone into my car and to go buy a $20 chicken lunch. But when I saw that you were going to talk about the 5 most important lessons about business.
The 5 best decisions the Beatles ever made, and why you should make them too.
I thought to myself, there's my man. He's putting his lessons into the context.
How did your husband feel about that? How did Steve feel about that?
Well, we were both watching one of your videos last night, laughing, and he said, "Oh my God, I just so love Bill Stainton."
I'm a big Steve Juetten fan too.
So I went to this thing, and I showed up in the front row, and I'd been studying and learning about what it was to be a professional speaker. And I don't think up until then I knew what the heck a professional speaker was. But when I saw you on that stage delivering that talk, I thought to myself, now that is a professional speaker. And so,
because I got paid more than I think I did just get paid the chicken dinner. It was a Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. I got paid nothing. That was not a professional speech.
Well, I thought it was. And so we're talking about the 5 lessons. I know this isn't where you focus now, because you're a business and innovation expert who guides organizations to guide their teams to manage during challenging, daunting times. That is your current focus. Right. I know that, and you're brilliant at it. But just for the sake of edifying and educating folks who didn't get a chance to watch that, can you just sort of regale us with some of those lessons are? Because I think that as we're reflecting on 20 years of my professional journey, and I think you've been in business at least that long, what are some of those lessons? Because I think people are going to get a wink and a grin and an inspiration from them.
Well, they are universals. I can't say I remember all 5. If I started the speech, I could probably go through it. Muscle memory would take over, but just trying to come up with all 5 now. But among them are such gems as spreading the spotlight. With this one, I told the story about the day that John Lennon met Paul McCartney. For you kids watching this, John Lennon and Paul McCartney were 2 members of the Beatles. So I talk about the day that John Lennon met Paul McCartney, and John was 16 years old, had his own little band. And during the break, a mutual friend introduced this 15-year-old kid named Paul McCartney. And turns out there were some guitars lying around. And John Lennon quickly found out that not only was Paul McCartney a better guitar player than he was, but he was also a better singer. And it's Paul McCartney, the cute one. He was better looking too. And so now John Lennon had this decision to make. And the decision was, should I keep the spotlight focused just on me as the star of the Quarrymen? That was the original name of the band. And he was the star. Absolutely, he was the star. Or should I spread the spotlight and invite this McCartney fella in to make the team stronger, make the band better? Which is a tough decision for a lot. First of all, it's an impossible decision for a 16-year-old boy. I've been a 16-year-old boy. And trust me, when you're a 16-year-old boy, the last thing you want is competition. So, especially from somebody who's better than you at virtually everything and better looking. So, but, you and I, Nancy, you and I both know people in their, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s who would have trouble making that decision, who would not bring a Paul McCartney in because Paul McCartney might be a threat to your authority. He might show you up a little bit. He might, but you spread the spotlight. That's when the Beatles were born. That day, the day that John invited Paul to join the band. They weren't called the Beatles for another year or so. And, George Harrison had to join and Ringo. But the Beatles began when John met Paul and when John said, hey, I'd like you to be in the band.
Well, and I actually made a list of the top 5 things, and the other one.
Very good. You could have told me that.
So a single shared vision. Let's talk about that.
Single shared vision this is so, I see so many organizations get this wrong where they come up with like their mission statement and it's 17 paragraphs long and it's sitting like in a break room or a lunchroom back when we used to actually go to work behind plexiglass that's yellowed and scratched so you can barely even read it. And they say, this is our mission. And it's all things like, to be the number 1 supplier, blah, blah, to AC, it's like, and it's just nobody cares about it. Nobody even understands what it says. It's just, it was written by a team of lawyers back in 1953. And so it makes no difference. The Beatles had a vision, a single shared vision. And their single shared vision was this. They were going to be bigger than Elvis. Elvis Presley. Again, for you kids, Elvis Presley was the biggest there was. And these 4 guys from Liverpool, who were not even the best band in Liverpool at the time, said we're going to be better. We're going to be bigger than Elvis. And they achieved it. I know there's some Elvis fans listening to this, but we can have that argument later. But you think of some of the other great vision statements, and look, I'm not the first one to bring up, a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Microsoft, our little hometown company we have here, Nancy, you and I here in the Pacific Northwest, a company called Microsoft. Some of you may have heard of it. Their initial vision was a computer on every desk.
I remember that.
5 words, a computer on every desk. But see, here's the thing. If you have a really strong vision, you don't have to have it written down. You don't have to have it laminated. You don't have to have it notarized. You live it. Do you think the Beatles had plaques that said bigger than Elvis? No, but it was in their bones. They felt it. You could have gone to anybody in Microsoft back in those early days and said, hey, what are you guys all about? And they would say computer on every desk. Not because they read it, not because it was on the back of their business card, just because that was their vision. They lived it. It's what energized them and got them up. So if you have an organization, whether your organization is 5,000 people, 50,000 people, or just you and your philodendron, What is that vision about who you are, what you're about, that's going to be short? I always say it's got to pass the bumper sticker test. If it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, it's too long. And it's got to appeal to the emotions. It's got to pass the cool test, which means that when you think about your vision, you go, oh, cool. Because otherwise, what's the point?
And the next one is play to your strengths.
Play to your strengths. Now, the Beatles had a lot of strengths, but their core strength, the biggest thing, the thing that they had over anybody else, was they were just simply better songwriters. Now, they had a lot of other strengths. John and Paul were two of the best vocalists in rock and roll history. Paul was one of the best bass players. They had the sense of humor, that all that kind of stuff. But at the core, it was they just wrote better songs than anybody else, and that's what they chose to focus most of their energy on. Back in the early days when they were touring England in the back of a broken down van, they would be writing songs. When they were on planes, they would be writing songs. It was the songs drove everything else. If the Beatles songs had not been good, you and I would never have heard of them. They might have had one, they might have been one-hit wonders or something like that. But everything, the movies, the fashions, everything else flowed from the songs. So what's the one thing that you can do better than anyone else? Most people never even ask that question, but there's always an answer. There's always an answer. What is it that you can do better than anyone else? And when you find that, like Nancy, you found, exactly what it is that you offer to the world. It's crystal clear. You have no doubt about what you do. What is your biggest value that you offer to the world? Is that the only thing you can offer? No, you've got other stuff going on, of course, but that's the thing that drives everything else.
Well, and I think that one of the interesting things about that is, for some of us,
brought to you by Diet Pepsi.
Oh, very good. Some of us, it's so consciously competent. We're so consciously competent at that one thing that we can be quick to discount whether or not there's value there. And I think if there was a lesson I've learned over 20 years, is to stop doing that. Kind of reminds me of that Bob Newhart episode where the guy says, "Hey, give me $5 and I'll solve your problem." And the person says, "Well, I've got this problem." And what does Bob Newhart say?
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Yeah, I think that was a Carol Burnett sketch. You're right, though, Nancy. I was just talking with somebody else about this just less than an hour ago, about how we discount things that come easily for us. One of the things I'm doing right now is a freelance thing for a friend, is I'm writing jokes for a client that he has. I'm really good at it. I did it for 15 years. I've won Emmys for it. It's easy for me.
29 of them. 29 Emmys.
29 Emmys, yes.
Anybody was wondering.
Look, there's some right there. But it's easy for me, and therefore I think, I shouldn't charge that much. No, I should charge a lot because it is easy for me. And we tend to think if it's easy, it's got no value. Think about this next time you're in an airplane, which is, might be a while, but when you're in an airplane, I used to live on airplanes.
Please, can we get on an airplane?
Yeah, really. You have a choice between two pilots. Pilot A, landing the plane is really difficult, but they can do it. Pilot B, I've done this a million times. It's easy for me to land an airplane. That's the pilot. I want the pilot for whom it's easy. If I have to have brain surgery, I want the one who's like, I can do this. Yeah, I can totally. Yeah, this is easy for me. It's what I do.
But sometimes, according to the Beatles, you got to shake it up. So let's talk about that.
I see what you did there. Well, you do have to shake it up, but that doesn't mean you let go of your core strength. For this one, if I remember right with the speech, I talk about when the Beatles decided to stop touring. August 29th, 1966 was their last in-person concert at Candlestick Park. And they decided no more touring after that. And the rules said you had to tour. The rules said you had to get in front of the audience if you're going to make it as a rock band. But the Beatles chose to challenge the rules and shake it up. They said no more touring. It just wasn't working for them. And everybody thought that was the end of the Beatles. Yeah, it was a good run, but it had to end sometime. And then they went into the studio to make an album. It took them 4 months, which was, back in those days, in 1967, it did not take 4 months to make a record album. I mean, the only possible reason was that, something went wrong and that, that the Beatles were finished. But then they came out of the studio 4 months later on June 1st, 1967, with an album called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which, if for those of you who weren't around then, it's impossible to overstate the impact that this one single album had on the world. Now, you might listen to it now and go like, what's the big deal? It hasn't aged as well as some of the other ones, but it was unlike anything anybody had ever heard. And it was a huge risk for the Beatles. Because, they were known for being the lovable mop tops and She Loves You, yeah, 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 and I Want to Hold Your Hand. And all of a sudden they come out with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And I read the news today, oh boy, about a lucky man who, all these strange new things. Now, it was still the songwriting. That was still their core strength. They still wrote better songs. I mean, the songs on that album were still better than anything anybody else was writing. But they shook it up. They changed the rules. I mean, again, the rules said you had to tour. Beg pardon?
We can all be disruptors in some way, and that's one of the lessons that I take.
And most of us have had to be. Most of us have had it forced on us over the past year because of this pandemic. Most of us, there's been some disruption in our lives. Now, in my case, it completely killed my existing business model, which was getting on airplanes and flying to groups of large groups of people enclosed in a single room. Well, that stopped. So, sometimes it's forced on you, but even if it's not, if you want to stay relevant, if you want to stay competitive, if you want to keep having fun, if you want to challenge yourself, then yeah, you do need to shake it up. And okay, so because you and I both know, Nancy, that this is why you keep creating new programs and why, again, this is my version of Bye Bye Boring Bio.
And this is the latest version.
Yeah, you see, now there's nothing wrong with this one. It's fine. It's wonderful. But, you keep evolving. You keep coming up with new things and new ideas. And, or you know what? Maybe I could express that a little better now because now I have
Well, what I decided to do is, it's an interesting thing when you create products, programs, and services, just like you with your 5 business decisions that the Beatles made that can inform how we do our life. Mm-hmm. We create things and we think they're great and we ride them to the bank for a while. And then maybe they get stale or maybe things change and you have to sort of, if you could go back to that thing that you were riding to the bank and look at it with fresh eyes and say, is this the very best I can do? Is this relevant to what people are struggling with right now? Is now the time to relaunch this and make this better in service to an entirely new audience? If anything that I learned during COVID-19 is that revisiting the first edition of the Bye Bye Boring Bio and the second edition of Bye Bye Boring Bio, I was asking myself, how much better could I do to be of service to speakers, experts, and authors who need to speak up virtually in a whole new world? So I was totally inspired to create a whole new book, which I did, but I don't really want to talk about that. What I wanted to talk about is a couple of things. I want to pull out some lessons. Don't underestimate the value of a sassy talk title because it will break through the clutter and will bring the right people into the room. Number one. Number 2, when you see someone on stage rock it the way that Bill did, like I just made the decision, and I've always said this, find the jewels in the crown that you want to add to your professional network and see if you can pave a path for you to create a relationship. There may have been 350 people in that room, but the only person I was paying any attention to was you. And when I left that, I was so inspired. I thought one of these days I'm going to meet this guy and I'm going to be really happy to hear from him. And I hope it's sooner versus later because he's the kind of guy I want to have in my world. So that's setting the intention of who you want to hang out with. That's a lesson that we all can embrace. So then what ends up happening is at the time, it was the day of my book launch for Bye Bye Boring Bio.
I remember that. Yeah.
And if anybody has ever had a book launch, it's kind of a big deal. And I get this phone call and it's you.
Yeah.
And what happened that same day is I was a parent of a young boy who loved video games. And it just
he was only like 6'8" then. That's how long ago it was. What's he now? 8'4", 8'5", something like that?
He's 6'7.5". But anyway, be that as it may, we were getting ready to show up at Toys R Us the very next day to get in line to buy Rock Band the Beatles, because it was this game that was going to be debuting, and he wanted to be first on the block to have it. So between my new book launch and wanting to make sure my kid got this toy, you called. Do you remember what you said?
I don't remember the exact words, but I know why I called. Because again, back in those days, the Beatles were my business. That's what I did. I was the Beatles guy, and this thing was coming out, and I thought, you know what, I really should capitalize on this, but I don't know how. Who do I know? Who do I know who does know how? And you were the first and only name that I came up with, because I don't know that.
And I don't even remember if you I didn't think you even knew who I was. I don't even remember how, but anyway, I was manifesting that one of these days I was going to have a relationship with you. And then on September 8th, 2009, you called, say, hey, it's Bill Stainton. I said, you're the Beatles expert. And I said, yes, I am. He says, Little Bird told me that there's this game coming out tomorrow, and it's kind of a big deal. And me being this worldwide Beatles expert, I thought maybe I have a publicity opportunity. And then there was this long pause, and I said, well, Bill, way to offer some lead time on that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, yeah, it's tomorrow. What do you got?
Mm-hmm.
So my reaction, and I'm just modeling something that's something that people who are watching it's like I was manifesting someday I'm going to have an opportunity to help this influencer. And one of these days I'm going to be ready for that. And you called, and we started co-collaborating and co-creating. And I said, well, what about this angle? And what about that angle? And have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And by the end of this conversation, we'd come up with this press release draft about how this world-class Beatles expert was, riding on the coattails of this national worldwide launch to share important lessons for playing the game of life to win, something like that. Remember
something like that. Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, by Jove, I think we've got it. I think, I think you should run with that. And so then what happened?
Oh man, I think I booked like 20 radio interviews all over the country. And I think one or two might've been international also within a week.
Because it was Canada, right?
Yeah. I think I may have done one in England. I'm not. I don't remember. I mean, they were all over the phone. Of course, there was Zoom. This didn't exist. I mean, cameras existed, yes, but but in fact, I remember I had to do one. I was flying for a gig. It was early morning, and around.
I don't know who's saying this, but only Bill can start saying "I'm fantastic" and prove it. Put your name in the chat so we know who you are. I love that. I love that.
Somebody said, "Oh, I'm looking at the." I was still looking at the host chat. What's the? I'm fantastic and prove. I don't believe I said that, did I?
Well, be that as it may, but so you get on all these radio shows just because we have a casual conversation.
Yeah, all these radios. In fact, I had to do one from the from what was then called the Red Carpet Club. It's now called the United Club at SeaTac, which is the airport, my airport back then, Seattle Tacoma, at like 5 or 6 in the morning. So I'm trying to find the quietest place in this club. So I'm doing this radio interview with somebody. Meanwhile, other people are coming saying, shh, shh, shh.
It's Sharoof.
I'm on the radio with Dayton.
Sharoof is that's Sharoof that said that, the speaking coach for your TEDx.
My goodness, yes, he's amazing. Oh, wow. Sharoof,
okay, so I want to talk about that too. So a lesson to take away. If you want to meet someone, put him on your vision board, decide it's someone you want to meet, imagine that person's going to call you. And when they call you, stop everything, even if you're in a book launch, and say, how can I serve you? How can I support you? What can I go to do the extra mile? Because that one conversation brought him to an outcome that was really something to celebrate. Yeah. And I didn't charge him for it. I just wanted to be generous and be a blessing to him in this moment of opportunity, because I knew that the energy would come back to me in some way, shape, or form. And I wasn't wondering or worrying about how it was going to happen. I was just showing up in the moment. So then what ended up happening is I end up deciding that I'm going to aspire to be a professional speaker and that I should join the National Speakers Association, because that's where professional speakers gather. And I commit and invest into myself by getting on a plane and flying to a conference where I'm walking through the aisles of this very fancy hotel, just marveling at all these people that I never thought I'd be in the same room with, because they're the speakers that I've grown to admire and appreciate. And who do you suppose I meet while I'm walking down the hall? Do you remember this?
I don't. I
remember it like it was yesterday.
I was doing a lot of crystal meth back then, Nancy. So
is that okay?
Yeah, a lot of things are blurry.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't think he even knew my name. I didn't think he knew what I looked like, but I knew what he looked like, and I saw him coming, and I wasn't stalking him. But I said, "Hey, aren't you Bill Stainton?" He says, "Well, yes, I am." And I said, "I'm Nancy Juetten. Remember we had that chat about the Beatles a couple of years ago? Oh, yeah. How are you?" It was like old home week. And he said, "I really appreciated that you helped me out. What are you up to these days?" And I said, "Well, I'm working hard on becoming a professional speaker." He says, "Well, what do you talk about?" "I talk about how to transform your boring bio from wallpaper to wow to attract clients now." "You don't say." And then you, at the time, you were like on the committee to plan the next conference.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I was the co-chair for a national workshop, for a national NSA, National Speakers Association workshop that was coming up like that February in Dallas.
And you said, "Hey, I'm on the committee. I could recommend you for a breakout session." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, that would be so great." And you did.
Yeah, and you hit it out of the park. Standing ovation. Mm-hmm.
Well, and it was such an exciting thing for me because Brendan Burchard was on stage. Lisa Sasevich was on stage.
That's right.
I had my own breakout room, and it was full to the hilt with people that wanted to hear from me. So all this time I'm thinking, I want to be a professional speaker. How am I ever going to find a way in? And I run into you in the hallway. I'd done a kindness to you years before. You remembered. You felt compelled to do something nice for me in return. It felt very symbiotic. And what do you know? Mm-hmm. That happened. And so
I think that's a really good point you raised, because I think it just showed itself several times in these stories that we've been talking about, is that you never know when the payoff's going to be. I think we live in this world of immediate payoff where, hey, what can you do for me now? And you plant the seeds, you throw the pebble, you do whatever metaphor you want to do. You don't know where those ripples are going to land. You don't know when all of a sudden it's going to come back. And look, maybe it won't, but still be nice to people just because it's a decent, you don't do it, expecting something to come back. You do it because that's what good people do. And we are good people, not the others, but we are. But you don't know. I mean, you never know. It could be, it could be years later. It could be months later. It could be years later when all of a sudden, the phone rings or something like that and say, "Hey, you know what? I've got this opportunity for you," or something.
Well, and I think the National Speakers Association does a really good job of inspiring and igniting generosity among and between the members, and encouraging people to lift people up along their climb. And I really appreciated that tone, but you really hit it out of the park for me when you opened that door for me, because it did put me in a target-rich environment where people were absolutely interested in learning how to say bye-bye to their boring bio and hello to opportunity. And so not long after that, we were going to NSA meetings on Mercer Island and hanging out from time to time.
Right. The local chapter. Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I really like this guy. I wonder if he would consider coming to my house and having a cup of tea and talking for a couple of hours just to see what I could learn from you about professional speaking. And at the time you were sort of interested in learning a little bit more about online marketing.
Very much so, yeah.
So you came over, it was just the two of us. And
I think you may have mentioned something about wine also. I don't know. There was some other inducement, but but it worked.
But we had the best conversation. And by the end of the day, like, you had learned so many things. I had learned so many things. And we got this bright idea. Why don't we do a teleclass and share what we had talked about with a much wider audience? Mm-hmm. And what was cool about that is that in the whole internet marketing world, there's this very formulaic way that you do a teleseminar. And we just sort of mavericked along and did it completely differently. And you were so clever and funny. And we we played all these word games with songs from the Beatles. Like, if you're tired of that song, you never give them, what is it? You never give
Never give me your money.
You never give you your money. You're going to love this teleclass because we're going to teach you how to change that.
Right. Yeah.
Remember
Well,
when
teleclass, again, for you kids watching this, teleclass was like this, except without pictures.
So here was the cool thing about it, and I think this is a really cool thing to say, is that I had been gearing up to create a get known, get paid mentoring program, and I wanted to launch it to my community, but I didn't want to do it in the traditional way. I just wanted to have all of the help, none of the hype, pour the value, tell my truth in an interview scenario. And in the last 5 minutes, I was going to say, listen, you were going to ask me, what, if anything, can people do to do business with you?
Right.
And I said something to the neighborhood of, if you've loved what you've learned today and know that I'm your teacher and you think that the Get Known, Get Paid mentoring program is something you want to talk about, my phone number is, my email is, give me a call. We'll make sure it's a fit and we'll get going.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I ever told you this, but I sold out my program as a direct result of that conversation.
Really?
That
That's
and
fantastic.
It was fantastic because up until then I'd been tolling around at the $95, $97 bar. And all of a sudden I was selling this multiple $1,000 program and people were investing in full. And many of those clients that I worked with back then are still my dear, dear friends today, because I never took a transactional approach. It wasn't get in, get out, get on with it. It's let's get in, let's create some results, let's create a relationship. And when we feel complete with the coaching relationship, let's continue to be friends.
Yeah, and I think the key that you brought up also is like, look, let's just see if it's a match. I mean, clearly there's some interest there because you want to have a conversation. But and the conversation might well be, you know what, this isn't for you. That's fine. If you've got something to sell, if you've got something to offer, you can't be so invested in the transaction, being a sale. It may not be the right time for them. It never may be the right time for them. It might be. I just joined a program over the past weekend that I've been looking at for the better part of a decade. And
really?
It's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, now's the right time. Now it crossed, now is when the Venn circles intersected. It's like, okay, we'll do it now.
I want to hear all about that.
Yeah,
we can do that offline if you want.
Yeah, we'll do it offline.
But
yeah, so it's not for you, it's for Nancy.
Oh, that's so funny.
You don't get to know about it, but Nancy does. And that's the beauty of a relationship.
So we're not even buying things from each other, but we're learning from each other and helping each other just because we're friends. So then we had another situation where clearly you're a brilliant speaker, and I got invited to be a speaker at something called Business Theater Live, which was kind of a mini TED Talk.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about this.
Up until that time, I was sort of the hold on to PowerPoint like a crutch and pray for the presentation to be over kind of speaker.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was going to be like on a stage in front of a big audience. And I was scared, really scared. And
I know what you were about to say.
Yeah. I was really scared. And I remember calling you and saying, Bill, I'm a donkey on the edge. I have this 20-minute talk to do, and I'm really afraid that I'm going to duff it. Sure. Can you please help me with the structure and help me with the bookending of I don't remember the term that you used, but you got kind of go full circle to tell a story at the end.
Circular construction, begin, end the way you begin. Sharuk is really good at this stuff also. So that it seems organic. So the ending ties back to the beginning. So there's an arc, a complete arc, and the audience goes like, ooh, that was nicely crafted. Now, they may not think that consciously, but they just feel, oh, this is somebody who knows what they're doing. And
I said to Bill, I'm not sure I know how to do it. Will you help me? Can I pay you? And he says, no, you're my friend. I'll help you. Yeah. And you did. And I gave this talk about igniting courage that was inspired from the lessons from The Wizard of Oz. And it was like a breakthrough moment for me.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Wizard of Oz.
And I wasn't selling anything. That was the cool thing, because what was compelling to me about this particular talk was it wasn't the kind of thing where you're going to deliver content and then you're going to stealthily transition into making the invitation.
Ask. Yeah.
Do all of that. It was just inspire for 20 minutes and leave them feeling better than when they got there. And that was a whole new style of speaking that I didn't have any experience with. And I delivered this talk. You helped me. And it's been viewed like 1,400 times since then, which is kind of a lot for small town guys.
No, that counts. That certainly counts. That's good. Mm-hmm.
And then you got your TEDx. Remember that?
I do remember my TEDx. And again, Sharuk, who's on with us now, was my coach. Because even though
about that, because
it was amazing. It was in front of 2,500 people at the Queen Elizabeth Theater in Vancouver, BC, and it was all about innovation, creativity, breakthrough thinking, connecting the dots, which is what I talk about now, because that's how you come up with amazing, brilliant ideas. It's by connecting dots. It's not the lightning bolt. And so I did that. It was an amazing experience. Again, this great theater. I mean, the last time I'd been in that theater was to see Phantom of the Opera. And now here I was on stage, and it's a full house. 2,500 people. There's people in the balconies, all that kind of. So it was really cool. And
what I remember is, well, first off, I'm going to drop the link to Bill's TEDx talk in the chat after we're done here today.
And by the way, if you watch it, it is good. If I do say so myself, but watch for that circular construction. Notice how I begin. Like specifically how I begin, and then specifically how I end. And there are a number of things in there that kind of have it come full circle. It is
brilliant. It was brilliant.
It's really well constructed, and most of that was me, but some of it was Sharuk. No, actually, it was a 50-50 thing, because sometimes even when you're good, like I've been doing this for a long time. Again, as Nancy said, I'm in the Hall of Fame, that sort of thing. But still, somebody else, it doesn't hurt to have somebody else look at your work, whatever your work is, because it's always good to get that outside perspective. The main reason I'm brought in to speak to groups is because they want an outside perspective. If I go in to speak to steel manufacturers, I know nothing about manufacturing steel. That's not why they're bringing me in. They already know that. They want somebody who can see their world a little bit differently. And so that's why good professionals have coaches. That's why good coaches have coaches. Because
what I remember about that talk, aside from how brilliant it was, I mean, there's so many things to say about it. It was about how to be a more creative person.
Right.
Run, don't walk, and watch this, but wait till we're done here. There were moments in that speech where you were dropping a line, and I could sense that you were surprised by the reaction of the crowd, where you had to like bend and sway and just allow for how warm the response was and how you were going to go after that. It's such a masterful experience. But I was sitting there thinking, that's my friend Bill. That's my friend Bill doing that TEDx, and he's rocking it so brilliantly. I want to see what I can do to support him now. So I remember thinking I was like a proud Jewish mother. I'm thinking, oh my God, Bill, this is so cool. I said, I must interview you for my Facebook community and find out how you got chosen, how you prepared for it, what happened afterwards. And I think that interview that you gave was viewed thousands and thousands of times. But then I subsequently took that link to your TEDx and I shared it with everyone I knew, because I wanted you to get to 10,000 views as soon as possible. And I had like 20,000 people on my list, and I'm thinking I could help. I could help you. And so I checked today, and that TEDx talk as of today has been viewed 24,833 times.
Oh, come on. Let's get it up to 25,000 people.
Okay, why not?
That's not that much to ask. I mean, I'm hoping for like 100,000, but come on, we're only now I feel like I'm on a PBS pledge drive. Come on, we're so close. We're so close.
I think you should watch it because it's so good.
It is so good. It's good.
And so, but here's the give and take again. It's like, you helped me with the speech. I was so grateful. you took their place on this big stage. I was so excited. I wanted to see about doing my part, to see about getting you more views for it. And then what do you know? But not long after that, I was invited. I did some teleclass, and some wonderful person was writing this book. Remember this? Maria Johnson.
I do remember that. Mm-hmm.
She heard me on a teleclass. She said, I want you to do a chapter in my book. And then I say to her, do you have all the amazing experts you need to round out your content, or is there room for one more? And she says, of course there's room for one more. I said, oh my God, I've got to introduce you to Bill Stainton, National Public, Hall of Fame public speaker at National Speakers Association, 29 Emmy Awards. How many years producing Almost Live? One of the best speakers I've ever run into in my whole life. I know he would add value to the project. And what do you know? Which chapter are you? Let's just try to remember.
I have no idea which chapter I am.
I will tell you. You are chapter 10. You are in here with Brian Tracy, Susie Orman, Lisa Sasevich, world champion Toastmaster, Craig Valentine, world champion Toastmaster, Darren Tay, and Nancy Juetten also. But this happened. I mean, we've just been helping each other back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's so
and I have yet to pay you a dime for anything.
And I haven't paid you a dime for anything either, which is, what is this? Why am I bringing this?
By the way, we're not recommending this as a business model, people.
No. But you know what's so cool? And why I wanted to, the reason we got into business in the first place is because you want to have fun, make money, and one without the other isn't good enough.
Right.
That was advice that was given to me by my accountant. But the other reason you want to get into business is because you want to enjoy the journey as well as the destination. And one of the things I'm really proud of over these 20 years is I've just been so deliberate and so specific about choosing these jewels in the crown along the path that I saw at a nascent point in my development. And I thought, I want to be in that man's world. And that's who you have been for me. When that very first chicken lunch, talking about those lessons from the Beatles, I thought when you say chicken lunch, you mean, of course, delicious chicken lunch, the kind you can only get at a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Well, for those of you who are thinking that a Chamber of Commerce lunch is a waste of time, I'm here to tell you that going to that one was a game changer for me, because every now and then. I got to meet you, and I got to see you demonstrate what it is to be a masterful public speaker. I got to witness you being generous and supportive of things that I wanted to learn. You allowed me to contribute to things that you were working on that I could add value to. And it's just been such a nice, symbiotic, wonderful relationship over so many years. And when I thought about how could I have a party about celebrating 20 years in business, I have to invite you to it, because we're the most unlikely pair. I mean, honestly, I don't hang out in your circles, and you don't hang out in mine. I'm mostly here all by myself in beautiful Bellingham, hanging out all by myself.
You chose, what was it, 2 years ago? You chose to move even further away from me. Although, it's still Bellingham. You're an hour and a half north of me, something like that. That's about it, if that.
The power of Be Live, I can be nose to nose with you, on the fly. And that was the other thing that I wanted to say, which is, I didn't call Bill 3 weeks ago and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing something. I woke up this morning and I thought, Bill Stainton is going to be the focus of my 20th anniversary celebration today. And I'm going to reach out to him by private message and say, hey, I'm doing this thing today. Can you come? Want to play?
Well, it felt kind of like, we've all seen those movies where the reporter from the New York Times calls the presidential press secretary and says, we're running a story tomorrow morning about how your boss murdered 18 people. Do you want to comment? It's like, no, I have. So you sent me this message on Facebook saying, by the way, I'm going to be talking about you a lot today. Do you want to be there? I said, yes, for legal reasons alone, I want to be there, just so I can dispute any of these, any of the slander. It's important to be there. But yeah, no, it was.
It's a total and complete love fest for you, is what it is. And I just wanted.
Well, let me also say congratulations on 20 years in business. That's not easy for any business to do, much less an entrepreneur and much less a solopreneur. I mean, obviously we both work with teams, but we're basically solopreneurs, but we have our kind of satellite teams. But that's an amazing accomplishment. 20 years through thick and thin, through recession, through pandemic, and still going strong. That's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. You know, I was saying earlier in the week that, you know, the Twin Towers fell in 2001, and then there was the Great Recession, and now there's COVID.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, life hits the fan in all kinds of ways. You can either rise up to meet it, or you can curl into a ball. And there have been a couple years during this 20 years that I wanted to curl up into a ball because life was pretty tough. But I'm just so grateful that I've found some kind of a new gear in every dip to find a new way to serve and be and grow. And I'm really glad that I get to be on the journey with people like you who inspire me to raise the bar and try to be better at what it is that I do and work on the craft of becoming a better human being and being a great friend and a colleague and someone who can be a champion. And I'm just really, really thrilled that you've been a part of my journey. So what are you working on now? And what are you speaking about these days? And share a little bit about what's on the horizon for you, especially in 2021 as we.
It's exciting. It's fun. I mean, so what I speak about, I mean, I am still primarily a speaker, although that's just a delivery mechanism. My expertise through producing my comedy show and everything is innovation, creativity, breakthrough thinking. That's what I talk about. Specifically, and here's the thing, there are a number of other people out there who speak and write about innovation. And they talk about why it's so important, and they give great examples of companies that have been innovated, and that's all well and good. I mean, that's all important. But nobody's actually saying, okay, here's how you do it. That's what I do. I get people innovating right away. It's kind of like I'll use another airplane analogy. If you're on an airplane and all of a sudden the pilot has a heart attack and somebody looks at you and says, land the airplane. Okay, that's the right thing to do. But unless you actually know how to land an airplane, it's worthless advice, right? So when people say, you know what, we're going through a pandemic now. You need to innovate. You need to think differently because what worked before isn't going to work tomorrow, and it's not working now. And you need to pivot. And all these words. You need to innovate. And people go, yes, I need to innovate. I need to innovate. How? Yeah, how do you innovate? Well, that's for 15 years on my TV show. We had to innovate every single week on demand, whether we felt like it or not. You can't just wait for the lightning bolt. That's not how innovation works. That's a common misconception. So how do you actually do it? Well, that's what I do. So when companies are thinking, okay, we've got an opportunity or we've got a challenge, or my team is just kind of like fallen into kind of a malaise of, we're just not coming up with anything. We're losing ground to the competition. We're not really standing out from the competition. We're not being seen as what my friend Joe Calloway would call a category of one. All of those challenges require innovative solutions. So what I do is I help people come up with those innovative solutions. And I do that up until March of last year. I did that primarily by getting on airplanes and flying to ballrooms, flying to airports and then taking an Uber. You know how it works. Because otherwise it would be messy. And speaking to groups, and now of course I'm doing it online. I'm doing it through other, I'm doing it like this. I'm doing small groups. I'm doing 25-minute innovation jam sessions for team meetings, like a weekly team meeting or things like that. I'm doing longer form things, but again, it's all towards the same end. How can I help my clients? Because again, Nancy, you're so good at this. You've always thought about, we talked about it earlier. It's not the transaction. It's, can I help you? Is there something that I have that would be of value to you? And, it's all about, and if there's not, fine, we can still be friends. It's still okay.
Well, chances are there's somebody that I know that I can introduce you to,
right.
if I can't solve the problem, if I'm not the perfect answer, who do I know that would be the perfect answer? And which is why I wanted people to know what it is that you're up about, because if there's ever going to be a need for innovation and creativity delivered virtually, you are the man that's expert in that. And you're the one that should be on the short list of people that they call to make sure that you're on the case to solve the problem. So if someone wanted to reach out to you, what is the single best way for them to bring you on the case to bring about that creativity, that innovation, and those important pivots that they need to make to be that category of one?
The best place to start is to go to my website, which is real easy. It's just billstainton.com. billstainton.com, and there's an I in Stainton. You can see it right down there.
Yep, see it?
billstainton.com.
And while you're there, I want to say, whenever someone says to me, I need to redo my professional website so I look like a professional speaker, who do you think I direct them to? I say run and don't walk to billstainton.com, because when you see his sizzle reel, when you see how easy he makes it for meeting planners to book him, when you study and model the example that he's demonstrating, there is a NSA Hall of Fame professional example on display. It is your job to take the best, apply it to your own scenario, and let your star shine a little brighter as a result. And if you need a speaker who can talk about these kinds of things, who are you going to call? Bill Stainton.
And even if you're not looking for a speaker, even if you just want to have a conversation about how you and your team can be more innovative and come up with better ideas, it doesn't have to be a formal speech. We can just chat and see if there's something there that I can help you with. So again, billstainton.com. If you forget that, you're here. You know who Nancy is. Reach out to her. She'll tell you how to get a hold of her.
I'll hook you up.
Yeah.
And so since it is my 20th anniversary of doing business.
Mm-hmm. And that is what I believe the gift for the 20th anniversary is pine cones. I can't remember what it is. I'm not good with this sort of thing.
It has something to do with silver, I think. I'm not real sure. But here's
you can't get silver now because of all those Reddit people and all the, that's not gonna Steve knows more about that kind of stuff.
Oh, come on. You're such a card. So here's the thing. I'm excited to have celebrated 20 years. I'm taking the whole week to celebrate. I'm trying to convey value, dispense lessons that can help advance your path to mastery, and also show my personality perhaps more completely than you've seen it recently, because, once you've been at it for 20 years, you might as well just go all in. This is it. Right. This is what you get. Not putting on any airs here. But at my shopping cart, at my website, getknowngetpaid.com, the Let's Work Together tab shows the most popular ways that we can work together. And all during the month of February.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should build one of those.
It's a good idea. Anyway, if you feel called to work with me in any possible way, when you use 20 years as your promo code, 20 space years, and you see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen, you'll save 20% on the tuition. And I am actively looking for clients to join me in the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Inner Circle. And I will put a link to that in the chat below so you can check it out. And the 20% tuition break applies to that premium program as well. Tomorrow, I'm going to come on live and I'm actually going to explain what is the Broadcast Brilliance Bootcamp and what is the difference between the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp and the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Inner Circle. I'm going to do the very best I can to answer all of your questions so that you know which of those two beautiful choices would be your best fit option. And if you feel called to join me in either, you can save 20% because we're celebrating. So I would be so honored to have the privilege of working with you and anyone you should choose to refer to me. And let's wave the flag for broadcasting our brilliance, raising our voice, making our impact, and creating friendships along the way. And was it the Beatles that said we all get by with a little help from our friends?
They did say that. Get by with a little help from my friends. Mm-hmm. I see what you did there, Nancy. See how you did? See that circular construction? Look at that. Look at that.
And there was one more lesson from the Beatles that we didn't quite talk about, but I'm going to ask you to finish strong. The first four were spread the spotlight, a single shared vision, play to your strengths, shake it up. And the final one is carry that weight.
Because Carry That Weight, which is a song from the Abbey Road album, Carry That Weight is really all about doing the heavy lifting. At some point you've got to do the work, because you can do all those other things. You can plan. You can run focus groups. You can buy all the online courses you want. And I've been guilty of this also, or buy, all the books you want or whatever. If you don't read them, nothing's going to happen. If you don't act on them, the universe rewards action. Nancy, you know this too. There's so many people who think about, oh, I should develop an online program, or I should sign up for this program, or I should build my own business, or I should do something. And nothing happens until you roll up your sleeves and actually take action. Carry that weight. Do the work. And I know that sounds tedious and like drudgery. It doesn't have to be that way. Here's the mistake people make. They think, I'll take action when inspiration strikes. Have you?
Oh yeah,
that trap, Nancy?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll take action when inspiration strikes. That's not how it works. You take action first. Any action. It doesn't matter what it is. Inspiration comes from action, not vice versa. You start taking action, all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I'm feeling more. It's like when you go to the gym. The hardest part is just going to we're assuming that there'll be a time we can safely go to a gym again. The hardest thing to do is to get in the car or get on the bike and actually go to the gym. Once you're 5 minutes into your workout, okay, now I'm just doing the workout, and it kind of, I'm starting to enjoy this.
Momentum is a beautiful thing. And the other thing that I think is really important is there's another beautiful close I'm anticipating from you. But one of the things that I always,
Nancy.
One of the things that I always say is,
I didn't even know I was going to be doing this, 2 hours ago.
I know, but you're doing such a great job. It's so much fun. I just knew this was going to be like this. But if you're doing this thing that you're supposed to do, you love to speak, you speak more. Yeah. You love to train, you train more. You love to create and innovate, you make that a priority. Right. So when you put love into what you do, it becomes a lasso that brings more people back to you, because they can sense that this is more than what you do to make a living. This is what you do to be fully expressed as a human being who has a gift to share that can change lives and shift perspectives and make the world a better place. And so what is the lyric about? Something about love? It's not the love you take, it's the love you make.
This is how I end when I do the Beatles keynote. This is how I end the Beatles keynote. In fact, I say I'll just do the ending. I say I'm going to end with this because the Beatles ended with this. I mean, literally ended with this. I'm talking about the last words of the last song of the last Beatles album. The last album the Beatles ever made together was called Abbey Road. And as they originally designed it, the last words of the last song of the last Beatles album ever were these. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Not a bad way to go out. But what does it mean? It means that you get out of life what you put into it. If you want to get more, you've got to give more, and the giving comes first.
I'm all Twitter painting. It was so beautiful. I knew you'd pull a rabbit out of the hat. That was so great. Bill, thank you so much for being.
Thanks for reaching out. This was fun.
All these years. Thank you for being a catalyst for me to step up to new levels of competence, new levels of contribution. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. Can we do another 20 years and see what fun we can have?
Yeah, we'll do that.
I'd really like that.
Yeah. We'll do that. 2041. It's a date.
And we have here Elaine Neberding says, great, She's enjoying it. Judy Herman, what great synergy. Larry Snyder's watching with us. Maureen Curious.
Hey, Larry, how are you?
What a great segment. So glad I tuned in. Larry says, congratulations. Cheers to you, Bill Stainton. The giving comes first. So if you have loved this, reward us with likes and hearts. In a little while.
What's
that?
Let's get up to 25,000 views. Watch
Oh,
the
yeah.
TED
I'm going to post the TEDx down below. Watch it. Tell all your friends. And then I'm also going to be uploading this conversation to YouTube so that it can be shareable. And if you think anyone else in the world needs to know about Bill Stainton and Nancy Juetten and all the powerful lessons we talked about, importance of a sassy stock title, always connect with jewels in the crown, be generous when the person of influence makes a bold ask, one good thing leads to another, break bread and talk shop, and be open to opening new doors to opportunity. Give first before you get. Be generous. It always comes back to you. These are all powerful lessons because go back to that love thing. Say that one more time.
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. That's not mine. Paul McCartney.
I know, but it's such a good one.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you so much for being live with me and Bill.
Thank you, Nancy. This is an absolute. It's always such a blast being with you, whether it's in a public forum like this or sharing a glass of wine someplace. It's great.
Well, come on down to Bellingham. We'd love to have you come and visit as soon as it's safe.
As soon as it's safe. I'm not going to do. I'm not an idiot. Well,
not for a long shot.
In certain limited contexts, I am not an idiot.
All right. Well, thanks all for joining, and we will see you tomorrow, 1 o'clock tomorrow. Yes, 1 o'clock tomorrow. I'll be coming on live. All right. Thanks again. The 20th anniversary continues. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.